Well, I forgot to tell you about the time I met Joh, and I never thought he was such a bad fella either at the time, because I'd been involved in acquiring a beacon site up on the Bunya Mountains, and at that stage we were buying a lot of these beacons, and they were some new device, a navigation device. There was one up past Nambour, and that's when all the southbound flights, in fact you used to hear them, they'd go off in the cockpit. And that was the sign for the, it was called a non-directional beacon, NDB. That was the time to start letting down, and well, there was the one on the Bunyas was for the aircraft tracking in from the Central West and Mount Isa, direct flights to Brisbane. Anyway, the site that DCA picked was off the main road, but right up on the fairly high, and it was in this very thick forest. But it was owned privately by a chappie who had quite a few acres of land. And it involved building a road. The site itself that we picked, or the DCA picked, wasn't far. It was only about 100 yards, less, 50 yards off the road. I forget the main road that wound up over the Bunya Mountains. Anyway, they picked it, and they wanted the access in, and this quite a small site just to put this tower on. So I wrote to him. He didn't live at the Bunya Mountains. He lived in Kingaroy, and we didn't get any reply. Then one day the phone rings on my table, and by this day I might say I was about a Class 6 clerk, and this voice just came on. Is that Mr. Voysey? And I said yes. Oh, he said, it's Joh Bjelke-Petersen here. And he was, at that stage, he was the Minister for Works and Housing. He wasn't the, wasn't the Premier. And I thought, oh. I said, yes, Minister. He said, you've written to a very dear friend of mine about acquiring a site at Bunya Mountains. And he said, he's a bit concerned about it. He said, whereabouts are you? And he said, oh, I've got your letter here. He said, would you mind, could I come and see you and have a talk about it? And I nearly dropped through the floor. And I said, oh, Sir Minister, I said, I'll come up to you. Oh, he said, that's all right. Yes, okay, thank you. I think he was, but he did offer to come and talk to me. So we made a time the next day, and up I went into his office, and he had the letter there, and I took up our file, and he said, and actually the main concern really was that it was what was it going to do? Was it going to be intrusive? And I said, well, no. And I said, the tower you won't be able to see it above the tops of the trees because it sort of goes up and out. And of course I knew he was a pilot, and he flew. I said, it's an NDB, and it's for, I told him what it was. I said, it's terribly important. Oh yes. Oh, he said, I'd use that myself, So he said, oh, that's okay, good. He said, it'll be all right. I'll tell him it'll be okay. Well, in the event, the chappie gave us the land.